keep rescheduling the class because 25th was Christmas and Kites Day. तो then I have to travel. आजकल wedding season चल रहे हैं. So, but finally I managed. So we are in lecture number 11, and this is blockchain technology and applications. I just keep showing this slide just to let you know that the content of this course is primarily coming from the internet, and there are research publications, and definitely I add my personal perspective and I exposure to different technologies in care. This is what we discussed last time. It was we reviewed the NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and then we also studied Merkle tree in blockchain, and primarily application of Merkle tree in Bitcoin, where the all the transactions in a block are put into a Merkle tree, and then we also compute its root, and then we discuss a design of a blockchain network, telling you that let's implement a blockchain in a campus setting where you have a department and the teachers are to teach and then evaluate students and take the quizzes, sessionals, final exams, and then how they can actually create a blockchain network, and then having 4 different departments having their own networks, and who are the peers in that network, what do you put in a block, how do you decide about the time you create a new block. So we discuss almost all perspective of a blockchain network design, and we also discussed that when should you decide that you should use blockchain, and we also discussed that not everything should be put in blockchain. There may still be an ERP or enterprise resource planning system or HMS or campus management system, or but some of the transactions that you want to be on blockchain, so you can bring those transactions on the blockchain from your ERP. So the client application could itself be an ERP, and then from the client application you can invoke a smart contract. Okay, so we'll keep learning about applications of blockchain. How do you design these blockchains? Without first, design should be without you worrying about an implementation technology, whether you are going to use Ethereum or Hyperledger Fabric. So you got to take these broader decisions. So we covered that. Today, what I intend to cover is that we'll go and quickly review what we did last time, which is Merkle trees in blockchain. Then we'll conclude this topic, which we started, Planetary file system, IPFS, which primarily is used in almost all blockchain application, including NFTs. And then a very interesting topic today is an application of blockchain, which is called decentralized finance, or DeFi. So this is what I intend to do, and then maybe tomorrow we do a few more applications like a hospital management system, and then I have another application which kind of relates to finance as well. So the finance otherwise is not my subject, but it is so key or critical to blockchain that we just need to learn about this, and then I would also like suggest that though I have been telling you right from first class that this course is not about my recommendation for people to invest in Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency, but once you learn decentralized finance, again, it's not my recommendation, but perhaps you can think of investing if you want to in a DeFi application rather than just being a dumb and just investing in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So decentralized finance requires you to have understanding of finance. You need to understand finance, and you need to understand the applications, and only then you can invest. So from investment perspective, DeFi is more important than simply you going and buying some Bitcoin or Ethereum. So that's why it is important. And otherwise, it is also important because we just live in a financial world where like everybody wants to make money. So we'll go and cover this DeFi today. So let's review the Merkle tree. Remember, Merkle tree is a binary tree. Binary tree, which is what is a binary tree? Binary tree is a tree which can only have two branches. Okay, so there may be like other trees which may have more branches, but that can also be broken down into a binary tree. So binary tree has a left branch and a right branch, a left branch and a right branch, left branch, and so you just keep combining them, and then you get to the root. So it is just like a tree which having only two branches, and every branch will have two branches, and then every branch will have two branches. So we understand this. Then we said blockchain uses a Merkle tree. And how does it use a Merkle tree? That it has in a block there are n transactions, and we have learned this already. So there are n transactions, and they are to be put into a Merkle tree. Then there are nodes which are full nodes, and there are nodes which are light nodes, and light nodes would not keep all the data for all the transactions. So they need to figure out whether a specific transaction is there, and they want to verify whether a specific transaction is there in the blockchain or not. So they query their peer nodes, and the peer nodes would send them some information for a verifier to verify, yes, this transaction is in the blockchain. So that's why Satoshi Nakamoto decided to use Merkle trees in blockchain. And so the idea is simple, that you have all these transactions which are shown in the bottom. So from T1 to T10, these are the actual transaction. What is a transaction? Transaction is just bunch of data, that who is sending money to whom, how much is the money, and the timestamp. And we know in case of a Bitcoin, it is UTXOs, the addresses of the UTXOs. And so these are the inputs and the addresses of the public key of the people, and the amount. So it's creating new UTXOs. So we pretty much know the structure of a transaction. So it's just collection of data. So collection of data is being hashed, and last time I showed you actually hashing the data, and then hash of hashes, then rest is hash of hashes, hash of hashes, hash of hashes. So you hash T1, T2, here you hash T3, T4, then you hash of the hashes 1, 2, hash of the hashes 3, 4, hash of the hashes 1, 2, 3, 4, then hash of the hashes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then hash of the hashes. So all the hashes together, which will be as if you hash all these here, H1 to H10, just hashing all together. But the tree would help you to, for once you make a query, for the node to send you minimum amount of information for you to verify whether a transaction is there in a current block or not. Right? So, for example, here you want to verify whether TD is the transaction which is there in the blockchain network or not, TD. So what you do is the adjacent nodes, the peer nodes, would only need to send you HC, HAB, and this particular hash is already there. This is part of the block header. Once you construct a block, it says this is your Merkle root. The hash of all the hashes is your Merkle root. It is part of the header in the block. So going this, you take this hash of the transaction. You already have this, so you take this hash, and you are given this. You take this hash, and you are given this. You take this hash and verify. And if you hit the Merkle root, which is already there, you say bingo. So this particular transaction is part of the Merkle, is part of the block. So this is the Merkle proofs in Bitcoin, which we already covered, that it contains the Merkle root. Along with other nuances, the previous hash is there, the timestamps are there. But for us, for this part of the content, important is that the Merkle root is there. And so every block has a Merkle root. Like I've taken this last time I showed you. This is the Merkle root block, and this is the block number 7, the 1000, no, 7 lakh 14,620th block, which was mined a few days back. And this is the Merkle root. And as you can see, there are nuance and there are number of transactions in this block. So there are 2,787 number of transactions. So you can just imagine like all these transactions getting into Merkle tree, and finally, you are getting a Merkle root, because a computer program is going to do this. So it does not matter that how many transactions are there. It's just a loop, a kind of a recursive loop where it's just creating out of all these transactions. The person who is mining creates, put all these transactions, create a Merkle root, and then just he's putting the nuance and trying to get all these zeros. And once he gets that, the miner announces that he has actually mined a new block. So then we briefly discuss IPFS, which is yet another invention in, uh, in the world of web. So it is called Interplanetary File System, IPFS, and it powers the distributed web of Web 3.0, where there is no, as today, almost everything is centered around a central server, may it be a Facebook or YouTube or Yahoo or your website, case website or NUS website or the Government of Pakistan website or NADRA website. So everything is centered around a server on which you have hosted it, and then everybody access that. And so a lot of cybersecurity issues are because of this, because the denial of service is nothing but they just make sure that because just one person is serving, and if you can compromise that person, so you will be denied with the service. If it is a bank, you will not able to access the website of the bank, and so bank would say there is, and distributed denial of service attack is also, so all cybersecurity issues are relating to a central server, because what the attacker does is that it attacks this server, and then it can attack and sometimes get data from the central server, because at one location everything is stored at one location. So it is very easy for an attacker, a hacker, if somehow he can get into the server, so he can get all the information, and he can damage you by basically changing the contents. He can damage you by not letting anybody else to access this server, and that's the reason most of the time you see that a website is not available, and then later you find out that it has a of service denial of service attack or distributed DDoS. You must have heard about DOS and DDoS attacks. So a lot of cybersecurity issues are relating to the way the current web works. And so in competition, I'm not saying that we should just transfer from this central web, because so many tools and techniques, and they have people evolve for this traditional web. But then there is another web which is distributed, which is permanent, and which is Merkle. Merkle is that it just spread the content all over the place and make a Merkle tree. So a person who is attacking, so he cannot just attack on one server, because your contents are not on one server. He has to attack on, and then you replicate as well. So it becomes a difficult problem for an attacker to attack. So it kind of handles this aspect of cybersecurity as well. So this is where And people have actually moved from centralized, all big application providers like Facebook, Twitter, because they know if they have a central place and literally billions of people accessing the central place, so it will not scale and there'll be delays and the user experience will be bad and they will find people not actually using it. If you're running a YouTube and every 1 minute you have to wait 2 minutes for the video to be streamed, obviously not, you are not going to watch that YouTube video. So what they have done is they have basically this decentralized, where now they have multiple of the locations where they replicate the contents, and then you get access to the nearest or the fastest data center or the cloud, which can just serve you best. Distributed is altogether a different story, where all the peers, so they are kind of no data centers and they may be data centers. And if they are data centers, they are also treated like different nodes in the distributed network. So this is called peer-to-peer. And the peer-to-peer means that every peer is connected with a number of peers. Every peer is connected with a number of peers. Every peer, this is a peer, this is your computer. The protocol will make it connect to 5, 6, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6 different nodes. And in this way, it's just web of connections. And you can access through this web of connections. So there are the protocols, they build protocols. As you can reach to any computer in this network, using these routers, and so is the case here, that the protocol. So what protocol helps us to get to any computer? It is the IP protocol. So in case of blockchain, it preferred, as remember that blockchain does not really like any central authority. So is the case for its data as well. They don't want the data to be stored at one place. So whenever there is a blockchain application, and especially a permissionless blockchain application, and a permissionless blockchain application, which is primarily anybody can just get into the network, uh, like YouTube is kind of a permissionless, where anybody can just go and view. Twitter is kind of permissionless, where just anybody, whether you are even have a Twitter account or not, you can go and access. So this is permissionless, and permissionless are to be there because it allows general public to access these services. So for permissionless blockchain, like NFTs, and NFT got to be permissionless because you want everybody to have access to the content that you have developed, and so they can go look at it and they can first contribute and then they can also trade. So NFTs are stored in IPFS. So and we have covered this, that IPFS has a unique fingerprint, which is the hash of the content. If it is a song or it's a painting, which is in digital form, it is just digital data. And you just take a hash, 250, hash 256, and remember, it will not leave you. The blockchain is just centered around this SHA-256 or any other hash algorithm. You give it a name, and there is a symbol, and this is an NFT which is stored where? IPFS. So there is also a link to IPFS. So IPFS is important to learn, and I told you, so there is again a host of protocols which are in IPFS, like in the IP network. In IP network, the most important protocol is the IP layer, which basically routes the information. So every router is basically, what it does is it has a routing table. So once you say, I want to access this particular address, so the router would know that how to take you to the destination. Like this is like our postal system works. And those of you who have learned computer networks, you must have a better understanding. But I would not like to spend more time here, but just remember, it is a protocol divided into chunks, and all the routers, and internet is nothing but connection of many routers. So router, and then 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 router. And you are sitting wherever you are sitting. For example, I'm sitting here in Lahore in Askri 10. So there must be a router. And if I am just connecting to somebody in Askri 10, so my data may not go to rest of the network, but otherwise it'll just go travel. And the protocols ensures that if the computer whose address you have given is alive on the network, if it is mean it is there, so it will respond. Okay, so they just have a mechanism, so the many routing algorithms that these routers runs. So is the centralized controller, and we understand the problem that though you write this a name, but actually you're writing an address. Okay, also there is somebody in the network who would convert this name into an address. He knows, like DNS servers, they have, like, once I say ks.edu.pk, it is actually an IP address, okay, where my website is hosted. So, and if you are accessing a particular, let's say there is a special announcement about the course, so on that computer there are folders, and in one of the folders would be have this information, and it'll just fetch that information and just present it to you. Okay, so this is how the IP network works, that there is a computer live on the internet, not disconnected, and that'll make sure that the series of routers would know a way to get to this, and actually multiple ways, that if something happens to this router, and then they reroute it and make sure that you get the information. And so no matter whether all of us are sitting in a hall, everybody had to go and fetch it from that particular machine. So this is the a strength and as well as a weakness of the way current thing works. And I gave you this example of Gangnam Style song, which is being viewed 2.4 billion times and causing this much to the internet. So everybody is accessing the same, whatever application you have, whether you have a Zoom, like Zoom meeting, again, there is a Zoom server that is also recording your video as well. Okay. So though many applications says it is peer-to-peer encryption, but a server has to be there. And especially in video conferencing application where you another person, it has to mix, because it brings it to a server, it brings your video to a server, and voice bring it your voice to the server, and then here is a mixer. So what it does is it takes voice from here, voice from here, voice from here, add it and play it to you. It does not include your voice. Okay, and so you hear what the other people are saying, and similarly it does for everyone. So it has a lot of work to do, that it is just getting all these streams and adding all of them together, and they may have a separate video stream for every user, but the voice has to be added. So all the voices are added except the voice which is being played to the other person. So this is what they require, a central server. And also the once you get on to Zoom, you're registered, and everybody has to be known that you are present. So means that your attendance register is also at a central place. So there's a protocol where once you connect, it says yes, so this guy is here, so it updates the table, and that table is available to everyone to see that who all are there. So almost every application on the web is a central application because of reasons, and but that makes it a scaling problem, that how many users. Zoom initially would only could add 10 people, then 100 people, then it'll cost you a lot of money to go for, let's say, 200 users or 1,000 users, and then say no more than 1,000 users because of the bandwidth limitation, because of the computational limitation, and then says the other, we can just be there, they can listen to what is happening, and they broadcast it. Okay, no matter it is YouTube or Wikipedia or Google, they all are. And if you get into a place where the central servers are, so just piles and piles of computers, which are the servers in these racks. All these are the servers, and so a lot of effort has gone into. So this is what the cloud is. Cloud is nothing but many computers uh, placed at one place, And then there is virtualization, containerization, and where once you want to run an application, every server has containers, virtual machines, which will appear like a computer because they are just using. So though there is one computing resource, but what they do is there is a load balancer, a scheduler. They take your task and they give you as if you are running it on a computer, but actually many people are running that task on the same computer or a processor. So is the cloud, and so a lot of centralization has happened over the years, and people have actually started believing that instead of you having your own computational resources, you should just port things on the cloud. So everybody is saying it is cloud enabled. Whether you are running a campus management system, they say it is cloud enabled. You have to pay for the cloud because you're getting all these services. So a lot of trends of centralization, that let's just put everything at one place. So instead of you worrying about the batteries and backups and the security and other stuff, let the cloud provider basically worries. It is about the marriages nowadays that you just go, you don't need to worry about going to the catering service or others. So this is a trend, and the blockchain technology is kind of against this trend of centralization. So that's the main difference. So instead of location based, it is content based. So once you say on a normal as a website, and it'll just get to somehow to that computer where the image is stored, and it'll bring the image to you and display it on your browser. So it is centralized resources, but IPFS is different. So there are three fundamental principles in IPFS. One is because it got to now, there is no central server. The concept of central server is not there. So it is all these computers spread over the internet. They are the resources, right? So you have a content. This is you who. So this is you, and you want to store a content. So what the IPFS? So you got to install IPFS. First thing is you got to install IPFS framework on your computer. Once you install it and invoke it, your computer becomes part of all these computers, and it'll figure out that who is he connected to. It makes a peer-to-peer, so it'll connect to some of them. So this is the first thing. So you got to install an IPFS, and then you say, okay, I want to store this particular file, and so what it does is it takes hash of that file. So may it be a video file or an audio file or a text file or a Word file or a PowerPoint presentation. So it's going to hash it, and it'll produce a hash, which is a 256-bit hash. Okay, and then it will create a directed acyclic graph, which is called DAGs. So you see what these DAGs are, and then it will have a content discovery via distributed hashes. So it'll put all the hashes, distributed hashes, in a table. So one file has to be broken down into multiple components, and those components are to be linked through a Merkle tree, like Merkle tree-like structure. So every content will then be hashed again. So you have this file. So you have a file, you cut it into pieces. So then you spread these pieces all over the distributed network. Okay? So one piece goes somewhere, another goes somewhere, the third goes somewhere else. And then there is a table which tells that hash of this, hash of this, hash of this, and the address. So this particular component is on this compute, on this peer node, right? So idea is very simple. So idea is not very complicated, that you have a bigger file, you break it down into chunks and spread the chunks all over the place. And then you have a table which tells that where these chunks are placed. And so that once somebody is searching for it, so there is a protocol, as is the protocol, routing protocol, where it goes and somehow figures out that this is where the computer. Similar is the protocol where the distributed hash table. So table, because otherwise it'll grow and there will be a central place where this hashing table is placed. So all the contents on an IPFS is on distributed hash tables. And once you do the search, the discovery phase, they'll figure out the table on which a hash of your particular file is. And then rest is that once it gets to that hash basically has directed a flow graph that go there, go there, go there, go there, collect, put them into a file, and that is presented on your browser. So content addressing, जी please बताइए.
सर ये जब आप कंपोनेंट्स में डिवाइड करके डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर देते हैं, अगर कोई एक कंपोनेंट आई मीन एक और कोई कंप्यूटर ऑफलाइन हो जाए, देन हाउ विल गेट द फाइल?
बिल्कुल, these are the issues with the IPFS, that it does not guarantee you that all the computers will remain on the internet. What it does is then it start making multiple copies of that, right? So a content then will be on multiple nodes. A file will be, the complete file will be on multiple nodes. And then secondly, it gives you an incentive. So that's what people are doing, that it gives you incentives, and then it is because it is also improving over the time. Then you can pin it. You say, I want, sometimes there is a file and you are downloading, for example, you say, okay, this file is not important for me, right? So there is a garbage collection protocol in IPFS. It will go onto every computer, and where people have not said that they need these files, so the algorithm is going to remove it. But once you have a file, you also become a source where that file can be searched. So there are multiple instances of that file. Let's say there are 4 instances of that file stored in the distributed network, but on different computers. And it figures out that all the computers which are live and on the internet, if somebody is not on the internet, you will not able to access the file, right? So these are the shortcomings of IPFS, that what if that computer is not the internet. And so they have now, if you have a space and you want to be remain on this, you will be paid because you are just providing a service. So there is a cryptocurrency on this as well, that you can say, I have this 1 terabyte of hard disk and my computer is always on the internet. So you load IPFS and you say, all this space is available. Anybody wants to use, you may just use it. But everybody is coming through an IPFS protocol. Nobody is coming from the outside to get access to your hard disk. So you can just make a little money because you are renting out space on your hard disk to IPFS, and you kind of also guaranteeing that you will not take your computer off the internet. Okay? So this is continuously
in this case, centralized data systems are not there.
नहीं, there is no data system. देखो, centralized data system तो बहुत structured होते हैं ना. They are like, आपको अगर आप Google पे चले जाओगे, या जो Google आपको ड्राइव देता है, Google ड्राइव जो है, okay, it's just a storage and they guarantee you कि वो, क्योंकि उसके ऊपर they spend lot of money in making sure, आपको पता होगा जो data centers होते हैं, फिर इनकी categories होती हैं, cat 3 का, cat 4 का, and what is their availability. So availability में भी फिर बहुत सारी complexities है, like they say the power should be from 2 different grid. So to make sure that if electricity is not there on this grid, not 2 different connections, but got to be on 2 different grids. So this, and then there should be a backup power, and then there should be another disaster recovery side. So DR side. So the centralized storage is very mature. Okay, it's very mature, and that's why they charge you money. Once you are using a cloud service, they charge you money for it. ठीक है, एक हद तक थोड़ा सा फ्री करते हैं, and then they give you, because they are making sure that computers and the resources are always available. Even your own personal, like if you have your own server sitting in your lab, it does not guarantee you this type of reliability. इसमें IPFS में that guarantee is not there yet. Okay, so
just one more question.
जी
ये जैसे data centers are there, and for sensitive services like for example Nadra, which is to be ensured 24/7. For these kind of services, this network, this distributed kind of network is not suitable, or Could
Not
it be
really.
made
देखिए,
more
अभी
robust
मैं
to?
आपको बताऊंगा there are other service provider जिसमें storage के नाम से एक है STORAJ storage, ठीक है. It uses IPFS. It's a cloud provider, but it's a distributed cloud. So what it does is that it takes your file and runs an IPFS. What IPFS does is it just cuts it into pieces, or इसमें further for the security it encrypt your file, then it cut it into pieces and then spread it all over the clouds, distributed clouds. एक जगह पे नहीं स्टोर करता है एक सर्वर में, ठीक है. उससे आपको थोड़ा सा और एक कॉन्फिडेंस होता है कि because it's a cloud, so you're paying for the cloud, so it's the reliability is there. So you say I don't care whether it is stored in 200 different computers across the globe, as long as once I request it, I get it. ठीक है, so 100% guaranteed. You get a best quality of service, and you say I don't care, but it says okay, I'll give you extra security because I'm using IPFS. I don't keep your file at one location. I encrypt it and spread it all over the place. And once you request it, so I have this table which tells me कि कहाँ कहाँ से उठा के लेकर आना है. I'll present you the file. So आप कहते हो ठीक है, मुझे इससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता, ठीक है. सो जिस तरह से रिलायबिलिटी आपको डेटा सेंटर्स और क्लाउड दे रहे हैं, उसी तरह से ये रिलायबिलिटी इसमें लेकर आ रहे हैं. बिकॉज वंस यू ट्राई टू मेक समथिंग, एक है ओपन सोर्स है, यू डोंट केयर, ठीक है, टोरेंट चला रहे हैं जिस आप, यू डोंट केयर, आप कहते हैं ठीक है मुझे ये फाइल है, मैंने कहीं से मिल जाती है IPFS पे, तो इट इज़ गुड, I am just getting it. So you are just using it. It is just free of cost, and you don't care, and you also become, part of a contributor. And then you are doing some serious work where you say, no, this is very serious, and I still like the idea, but I would like it to be जो इसकी shortcoming है उसको पूरा करके मेरे पास आए. So then
सर इसका जो कॉइन है IPFS का, उसका क्या नाम है? If you can.
उसके फाइल क्वाइन अभी मैं दिखाता हूँ आपको, फाइल क्वाइन के नाम से, ठीक है. तो आई शो यू इन अ व्हाइल, वो मैंने स्लाइड डाली है, ठीक है. तो अभी हमें समझ आ गई कि देखें जिस तरह यूट्यूब है, अब इसके मैं इक्विवेलेंट भी बताऊंगा. तो पीपल हैव कम अप विद अ यूट्यूब लाइक डी ट्यूब. A DTube uses IPFS, ठीक है. So you can view videos on DTube. There is a browser, there is a Facebook application. So अब हर डायरेक्शन में चल रही है ना. So because now people are really experimenting, and they are saying, oh, why YouTube? Why not to have something which gives you the same interface, but the videos are not stored at one location. And so इसका और क्या मतलब है? Like whenever PTA wants, it can just say जी YouTube खत्म, you cannot watch YouTube. Okay? जैसे Facebook जो है वो उन्होंने block कर दिया. So they can always come and block YouTube. Why? Because just a number of IP addresses. Okay? And whenever you write youtube.com, they can easily check you are basically trying to access YouTube, and before it even goes to a DNS server on all ISPs, then they tell all ISPs no YouTube in Pakistan. Okay, so they block YouTube. So they can actually block everything. So they can just censor anything, the government, because things are stored at a central location, and it has just one address, ठीक है, or a number of addresses depending upon के कितनी बड़ी एक वो एप्लीकेशन है. सो ये आपको समझ आई बात कि अब दिस इज द वीडियो, ठीक है. सो अब वो क्या करेगा, अगर इफ यू वांट टू स्टोर दिस वीडियो इन IPFS, तो इस वीडियो को लेगा एंड इल कंप्यूट हैश ऑफ द वीडियो. Let's say it is a 2 hours long video. I'll just put it into a hash engine, because digital data is just data. आप ओपन कर सकते हैं इसको जाके नोटपैड के अंदर. फॉर एग्जांपल एन एक्सेल फाइल, you can open it in notepad, so you see all the data, the characters, because to present you nicely in a word format, the software has to do a lot of things, because a lot of things which has the formatting information. So Word just reads the file, data file. Some of the contents in that file, a Word file, is not for you to view, but for the Word software application to know in which font something is to be displayed and where it is to be displayed, and the font size, the location, if it has relevant sections. So there is a lot of redundant information. So a text file, a TXT, where there is no redundant information, to a doc file or docx file has lot of redundant information. And that redundant information, though you just write the same content, you just write 3 lines in text and save it in Notepad, and the same save it in the Word format, and you'll find out the file in the Word format would have a larger size because it has to keep a lot of other information for you to nicely present that information to you. But end of the day, it is just a digital file. So it's a digital file, so you can hash it, right? So though all the experimentation we have done with the hashing is that you just write it into a TXT file, okay? But that's what is important for you to understand, that it is not about just something that you write in the notepad. It is any file. You can open a video file as well in the TXT. So you go, if a small video, you will see that again the video file will have a lot of information. Usually it is encrypted, it is compressed, and it has like frames per second information, the resolution information, and then very intricate information about every frame and how that frame is compressed, how this frame relates to the future frames and the previous frames. So a lot of compression happens, and so that information goes into a file. A video application, a display application like YouTube would just read that file and recreate the video for you to view. But all the redundant information and the information which has that how the file is compressed and after compression is just digital information. So it creates a hash. So whatever file you want to save, all the data in that file, okay, goes to the hash engine. Hash engine computes a hash which is a 256, right? Which is the fingerprint which is going to be unique. ठीक है, ये हमने खुद भी करके देखा बहुत दफा, and that's why I just focus a lot on hashing, because hash is so fundamental to blockchain technology, so fundamental, and you just keep seeing this hash everywhere. You just somehow, because hash is so beautiful, it is one-way function. No two hashes can be equal, no two video files can result into the same hash, and so it is just amazingly beautiful that you have just a fingerprint. So something you can recognize instead of just matching the entire file with this file as we do, whether they are the same or not. If you have a hash of this and hash of this, you just match and hash, you say, yes, these are the same file. And that is amazing. You don't have to compare, right? So this is just amazing. Very little change into this file will generate a new hash. It'll say, oh no, these are not the same. Don't. So,
Sir, can we use this as a technology for forensic audits of the movies,
yes,
clips and pictures?
yes, बिल्कुल आप इसको देखें, it's such a beautiful application, so simple. ठीक है, you can use it for forensic, you can use it for making sure that nothing has been added, deleted, and that's why the digital signature है आपके, once you have a document, and this is how you assert your digital signature. उसका hash आ जाता है जो कि यूनिक होता है, उसको आप encrypt कर लेते हैं अपनी प्राइवेट की के साथ, और वो आप साथ अटैच कर देते हैं कि भाई यही हैश है इसका, इसको नहीं छेड़ना है. Why you are encrypting the hash? So that nobody touches the hash. Otherwise कोई कहेगा अच्छा मैंने फाइल चेंज किया, हैश भी चेंज कर देता हूँ, ठीक है, तो you will have no way of knowing. आपने कहा उसने जो चेंज किया उसका हैश एक नया निकाला, साथ फाइल के लगा दिया. So you don't preserve the file, you preserve the hash, because hash is important. That is telling you कि अगर इसने कुछ चेंज किया है ना तो encrypted hash को तो नहीं चेंज कर सकता ना, ठीक है. तो आप इसको बहुत सारी चीजों के लिए इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं.
Right.
So the hash is important. So it takes the hash, and now there is no central location. It's a hash and you can just spread it over. तो अब ये किस तरह का नजर आएगा? ये इस तरह से नजर आएगा, जिस तरह से आप एक एड्रेस देते हैं ना कि यार इस फोल्डर में जाके इस आईपी एड्रेस से उठा के इस फाइल को आप उठा लो. So you say give me the picture with the key this, ठीक है. So this is the hash of the file, and whenever you are searching, you may search with a name, and there is like DNS service, there is a similar service here which will say, actually like you say मुझे चाहिए जैसा हमने कहा facebook.com. Facebook.com router will not understand what Facebook.com is. Router only understand an address, which is like IPFS will only understand this Greek language, which is the hash written in another format. So router को तो नहीं पता कि आप facebook.com कह रहे हैं. So router it will go to a DNS server. ठीक है. DNS server के पास लिखे हुए हैं इंसानी नाम जो कि people can understand and people can basically use because they don't want you to Facebook का पहले ढूंढें कि जी 110.259.12. So you don't want because it's not possible for you. Like in your mobile phone, it's not possible for you to remember. अभी तो आपको अपने बच्चों के नंबर भी नहीं पता होते. So you have a name and that's all you care. You say I care about the name and so the number is stored somewhere. So you just click on the name and goes into your जहाँ पे आपकी number save है and I'll just take that out and mobile phone will not understand the name. Mobile phone will only understand a number. So is the router and so is the IPFS. IPFS will understand this कि ये किधर पड़ा हुआ है, ठीक है? Which is the address. So you get a copy somehow. See, you don't care how, but जहाँ भी वो safe थी आपको एक copy मिल गई. Now you can also provide because it's just lying in your cache. If you have IPFS, you don't delete it. It is in your cache. ठीक है, पड़ी हुई है. अब इसको चाहिए. So it'll just अपने peer से पूछेगा. इसके पास एक table भी पड़ा होगा distributed होगा. ये तो मेरे पास ही है. ठीक है. So I have. So it'll just provide it with the file. See. So this is how the works. And as like more people are getting copies, they just remain there. So now there are 4 copies. And if this guy may find it from here, and it will have a copy. And if it is not an important copy, like you have not penned it, it'll just an algorithm will come after a while. I'll just eat up, clean up. तो वो उन चीजों को clean कर देगा. और जिधर आप कहेंगे नहीं, you find it that this is an important file, उसको छोड़े. मसला हमें तो होता है कि in your own computer you will have 10 versions of the same file because हर दफा आप डाउनलोड कर लेते हैं. सही है. So at least IPFS will tell you, oh, you have this file. You already have this file, what you're searching for. So it'll give you the file from your own repository. ये file है जो आप ढूंढ रहे हैं. Okay, because it is a content address उसका ID है, not the IP address. If you have a file and you say मुझे ये file दे दो, तो again because you're giving it an address, वो दोबारा ले आएगा और आपको कहेगा जी ये ले, एक और कॉपी बन गई है. फिर आप देखेंगे ये ले जी दूसरी कॉपी बन गई है, कहेंगे आपने इसको 11 दफा डाउनलोड कर चुके हैं. Because you find it easier because you say मैं कहाँ ढूंढूंगा, उसी में चाहे आपके डाउनलोड में पड़ी है. So I'll go and I'll make another copy. But if it is running in IPFS, say, oh, it is in your own computer, so here is the file. So obviously there are many benefits of using IPFS, and it is getting mature day after day, and people are having more and more application. But interestingly, ये evolve हो रहा है ना अभी. Like those of you who wants to like even do some research for computer science के अंदर, so you can actually work on some of the protocols. You can improve some of the protocols. You can suggest like more modifications. I have seen publications where they are using the smart contract, and based on the smart contract, they are distributing who is part of that smart contract, who has given his willingness to store some critical information, for example. So it's in a blockchain, in a blockchain scenario, even the storage is based on a smart contract, right? And the smart contract governs that how the file will be spread and how it will be placed and where it will be placed. And if you're willing to pay money and you have a humongous amount of data which you want to store, so you say I'm just willing to pay a little every month and for the services that people are providing me for storing all my data. Let's say you have IoTs especially, right? IoTs are continuously just producing data. And you say, I cannot just store this data. So you have the data which is continuously coming from IoT. You say, let the other computers in the network store it for me. And once I need it, I'll just get it, right? So for these type of applications where perhaps data may or may not be meaningful for other people, but for you, the storage is important. And you may also, run it through a smart contract that I want this data for 1 month, and then after 1 month, I don't care. It may be just deleted because I want to look back in 1 month's old data. So continuously you are generating data. and through a smart contract, there may be nodes which may say that we will not go offline. Okay. So yeah, the DAGs are the Merkle DAGs, and each node has a unique identifier. We understand that is hash of that node's content, जिसके ऊपर ये भी हो सकता है कि सारे के सारे जो breakup किया है वो उसको put it on if it is not many and that has a space, put it on the same computer or may split it onto different computers. It's up to the protocol. So it first splits it into blocks, and then each part is basically again hash. So each part can be authenticated, yes कि ये part इसी का part है, और उसको फिर लिंक हो जाता है मर्कल डैग के अंदर. फॉर एग्जांपल इसका इट बेसिकली इट हैज पुट अ कैप ऑन अ मैक्सिमम साइज to a file, 256 kilobit, not more than this, 256 kilobit. This is the data you can have in a file. Once your data grows beyond this, it's going to chip it out. It's going to split it into multiple chunks. Okay, so for example, this one image is larger size is broken into 4 parts. So one part goes here, the other part goes here, this part goes here, and this part goes here. So you have this IPFS, 4 objects have been created, split into smaller blocks, and that's what the IPFS protocol is. Then you have another 5th object. So you have one object, you have second object, you have third object, you have 4th object, and then you have 5th object. The 5th object is basically tells you where the other objects are. My first object is here, the second is here, the third is here, and what are these? These are hashes. Right? I say hash, 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 hash. This is where you can find out, and also a table, and I'll show you a table as well. So even you can have the entire directory structure, and you say store this whole thing somewhere, the folder structure. So it has to maintain the folder structure as well, and all the files in the folder structure as well. So IPFS protocol will actually take care of all this, that the hierarchy will be preserved, that you have my video folder, which has 2 parts. One is a JPEG file and the other one is another folder. And then so this is, kind of a Merkle tree, that you have this and then split into more and more and more, and so that from this you can successively get to a particular object. And then it also does the versioning as well, that you have a thesis you are storing in IPFS and you change it. So and changing and committing it, that now you commit it to IPFS, you edit it and you want it to be saved. Like on all version control software, आपकी जब software you are trying editing, compiling and making sure that once you want it to be a version, okay, so मसलन उसमें भी होता है जब version controls, the people who have used like version control software, so there is a point where you say this is a good version which I want to save as a version, and you just say this is my version 1.0. And that's what I do with my lectures as well. Once I'm preparing, I have different versions of the same lecture so that I know what it originally was and how I have changed it. So for example, this file is perhaps version 0.2. Okay, so you have, and then you have to commit. Commit means now I'm committing this. First I'm editing, saving, I'm not committing. But once you commit it, it becomes a version on the IPFS, which is linked with the previous version, a version which is linked with the previous version. So that's how you create versions, and all the versions you can access. So you commit to a version. Yeah, yes, this is something which I want to store as a version on my IPFS network. So large files, very large files. For example, there is a video file which is 4.7 gigabyte. Okay, and it is 256, which is the 256 bytes. Sorry, not bit, byte. That small b was wrong. It is capital B. It's a 256 kilobyte. So it becomes so many chunks, 18360 chunks of information, And if there is another file, again, it has 2815. So that's what it does, that it breaks it down into smaller chunks. And then these are those chunks and put it in a Merkle tree. And this is the IPFS content CID, which is the root hash or the content identifier. So the good thing about it is that let's say it is your second version has, you have only changed this part, this content, and rest are, for example, the same. So though the root hash will change, but versioning can basically only need to store this. And so an intelligent versioning system would not have to just replicate, everything. So I'll just change the part which is required, save the part which is required to be saved. Or Baki, we understand this hashing. The third part of the IPFS is that how this whole information is stored in a distributed hash table, like we have a routing tables. Okay, routing table में क्या होता है? Routing table में यही होता है कि if you want to get to a specific, so it's depending upon, so you have this router, and it has different ports that it is connected to another router, another router, another router, and so the agar if it got to have different types of routing algorithm, if it is got to be a complete path which you have to specify, then you specify that from here it should go to this router, from this router it should go to this router or this router, or in some cases you say I don't care, I just know where the next router is, so you only throw it to the next router. It's up to the next router to figure out where it needs to send it, and so like this it gets to the destination. So is the you have a distributed hash table where you have the information which you have split, and then you find the content asking your peers. So this is kind of a table which is, remember the this is the file. Okay, so this is the file. It's broken down into 256 kilobyte chunks, and then you create another object which basically points to all of these. So this is important, that there is just another object which points to, which has the hashes of all these three stored as a link, that these are the three content of this file. So this is an object which does not have the content of the file, but just linking. So this is kind of an empty object. So you can say it's an empty object which is storing and then a table like this. Okay, so you have this is a distributed hash table. It says, so once you take a hash, so this 256 kilobyte has a hash value this, and the second has hash value this, the third has hash value this, hash value this. You have a table which says chunk, which is the hashes, this is the address, and says it is in node this. So this is the node ID in the network, peer ID. So it is the peer ID. The protocol understands that with peer ID, how can it reach to this peer ID? So this peer ID has this part, 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 and the part which is the empty block is stored on your own computer because you are also part of the network. So it becomes easier. Like once you yourself require it, it knows how to go and find it. You have that object. If somebody else's wants it, so it gets to your computer to get this block, and then this block has the information where the rest of the blocks are, and the table would tell that where those are stored. So that brings them together, and using the empty block, we'll just put all the blocks together, concatenate them, and create that into a file. Okay, so you have this is how the uh, IPFS is stored. So let me recap. IPFS में हमें there is a content identifier which is equivalent to a name. It's kind of a name, but not an address. So name, which is the hash value of the file. A file is broken down into pieces, and all the information is put into hash table. And once the protocol searches, it'll it'll figure out, it'll get to this part of the distributed hash table and would know that where the empty object is and where rest of the objects of the file they are, and then it's going to bring them to you and will generate uh, as it says, does my file live forever on the network? Because anybody who is downloading will have a copy of that. Only important files are kept on the network. Unimportant files are removed by the garbage collector. By pinning a file, we mark as important. Unimportant files are only cached temporarily. So this is how to ensure presence. Somebody asks of computers on the internet, so you give them incentives, and and you proactively distribute files. And this is the Filecoin which is used, and Filecoin is today traded at some value. And this is the how you incentivize. And so you say, I got a space, and then you start storing files, and the algorithm itself would just replicate these files. And so this is how this IPFS works. Why it is called interplanetary? This is also very interesting. Like people see in future. Okay, they see what if people start living on Mars. This is Mars. क्रेजी सी बात है लेकिन जी जी
नहीं कहीं सर, मैंने कहा ये हुई ना बात, ये अब मजा आया इसके नाम
जी they thought that people would one day will come once people will live on Mars, and then it will be very hard to access the internet on the earth, because it will take about 4 minutes to 24 minutes for a signal to reach on the earth. और जो TCP IP का प्रोटोकॉल है, TCP IP का प्रोटोकॉल है, वो लोकेशन बेस्ड है. If you want to watch a video, so every packet will go and take 4 to 24 minutes. और फिर वो वापस आएगा, फिर जाएगा, फिर वापस आएगा. It'll take you next time again you want to watch it and somebody else wants to watch it, again it will go through the same torture. But if you start replicating, let's say people are living और इस पे आबादी बढ़ती जा रही है, so through the IPFS, automatically the entire internet one day will have a mirror or a copied on the Mars. Because फाइल उधर ही रहेगी, उसको कॉपी बनेगी, तो अब पहले वो सर्च करेगा on the peer networks on the Mars, and if it finds a file there, it'll say, oh, no need to go to the Earth, or so they named it interplanetary. It's a Stanford guy, the very interesting lecture he gave to Stanford, who created this IPFS. There were like 8 शायद 8 लोग हैं वो जिन्होंने बनाया सारा. Let's say 8 to 10 people perhaps. So they have actually started this, and or now it is just growing. So this is, we understand, okay, IPFS will replicate the entire internet one day on Mars. जब Mars के ऊपर लोगों ने रहना शुरू करना है. So these are the equivalent. Now you can go on the internet and find out कि भाई ये तो Chrome है आपका. So there is a browser that supports, its name is Brave. So you have this Google Drive and other storages. There is a storage on IPFS which is called storage. ठीक है, Sky, which you use for video conferencing or even Zoom and other, and there is an application which is called Expertise. So similarly, there are like other things, Facebook, Twitter, and they are coming up with their own. ये जो Akashe है, Akashe, Indians are into, obviously into this, they are into anything which relates to the software. So इस तरह से आपको बहुत सारी एप्लीकेशंस इसमें नजर आएंगी. जिसमें ब्रेव ब्राउजर है, दे क्लेम टू बी 5 times faster, ठीक है, द बेस्ट प्राइवेसी ऑनलाइन, एंड दे support there is a provision for you to go and enable IPFS. So it says enable IPFS, ठीक है. So in this browser, though it just works like a normal browser as well, but once you say enable IPFS, so it will have the IPFS protocol. It understands, and you can host your website also on IPFS, and then this browser would understand that how to get content information which is stored in IPFS, and so this is a browser which basically is IPFS supported. Similarly, I talked to you about this. It is called storage. It is a decentralized cloud object storage for developers. And what it does is 4 steps. One is that if you want to store a file, and obviously they say that first 150 gigabyte is free. So you must use it. Try this out, because हम Google Drive भी तो use करते हैं ना. So you can just use this, and it is saying first 150 gigabyte, which is quite a bit of space, is free for you to use. Right? So how it does it? That it, first of all, whatever file you put it on the storage, it encrypts it. So this is the step number one. The object is encrypted. Step number two is that it split it into small pieces, as is done in IPFS. ठीक है, उसको cut करेगा बहुत सारे pieces, as is shown here. This is I've taken from the website. This is the website, and it's nice animation which shows that file being split into pieces. And then is object pieces are globally distributed. Okay, globally distributed. Pieces of an object are then individually stored over a global network of storage nodes. An object is never in one place. Okay? And so primarily it gives you more comfort that nobody can access my information because it is not stored at one place. First, it is encrypted. Second, it is stored all over the place on the globe. So it gives you the, and once you retrieve them, so all the pieces comes to your computer, you put them together, and you see that. So you get. इसी तरह से ये मैं आपको बताता था, आकाशे नाम का है, ये इंडियन, दे आर इंडियंस एंड दे आर इनटू सोशल मीडिया के एप्लीकेशन को इसके ऊपर लेकर आ रहे हैं. और सो मोस्टली सोशल इंटरेक्शन, दे आर फोकसिंग मोर ऑन सोशल इंटरेक्शन. So for example, they say following the successful Ethereum blockchain, Genesis is eager to test the idea of a decentralized social media networking using Ethereum and IPFS. So people, अगर आप सोचेंगे तो the Facebook is already distributed. Like, masalan, you have a friend list, and he's your friend, he's your friend, he's your friend, so all these are your friends. Okay, so network is a distributed network. But what Facebook does is it sits in the center. Okay, so once it sits in the center, and so these are all your friends, and they are all putting up their contents on the Facebook, and then there is a permission that if they say it's only for close friends, so means that they will push this content, whatever content, maybe um, um, a pointer to the content, and which will put it on your feeds में डाल, news feeds में आ जाएगा, आपके page पे आ जाएगा, who all have done, but there is a central place. What if everybody has his own content? I'm just giving you an idea. Everybody has his content stored on his own computer, and so, but there is a protocol which says you have put a new content and it is just stored on your computer. So I go and get that from your computer instead of going and getting it from. But once I see it on my display, it is transparent whether it is coming from one place or coming from different places. Now the question is, what if that computer is off, so I will not able to get to your computer and get this content. So then maybe you start and just exploring. Let's say this guy is also friend to this, and he has already seen it, and he has already seen it, and they are also in my friend list. So this is a distributed algorithm. I say, okay, because there is an address and we are just sharing a hash table, and I say, okay, no problem. He's not there, but the table is telling me he has a copy of it and he has a copy of it. So I'll get it from here or here, because anybody who has seen that image or video or the message, and the other people have it in their caches, I can just, using IPFS algorithm, I can go and get it from their caches. Okay, and so so means that a distributed kind of a Facebook algorithm can be devised, and they can work for sure. Intricacies hain, but they can, of course, they can work. So is the this organization. He has a foundation and primarily focusing on social human advocacy. That's what it says. So ये अच्छा एक interesting किस्म का direction here for people to do research, come up with even the startup ideas, and KG, this is a startup idea that I will have, and perhaps people will feel more comfortable that if I know that I have a very small group of people, I'm friend with, let's say, 5 people, and I only want my network to be, these 5 people, and the content they intend to share, instead of they placing it at one place, and then you are always worried about your content going to other people. And definitely this is what the Facebook is all about. They use that content to extract marketing information and the other type of information about you. For example, nowadays they're just into something and they are saying we need to do a compliance verification on you. And there is a social media compliance verification. Okay, social media compliance verification is that what type of post have you been putting? Let's say if I go and try to get a visa, for example, for a country, and they'll say, okay, we first need to do a social media compliance, that have you ever put, any post against my country or my beliefs or my this or my that, or hate a, a post where there's a hate speech, or and then they have what they have, like collaboration, and they get services, they use services for Facebook and Twitter and this, and you may be thinking that though there was a post, but it was limited to my friends. But if it is on the Facebook, it has a central repository. Facebook can actually provide this service to a government, that this guy has been like posting, these type of comments on. So to mitigate these, this technology is very, very important. अच्छा, अभी हम we can take a 10 minutes break perhaps, and because this is again a very, very interesting subject, which is DeFi. So let's take 10
सर मेरी
minutes.
गुजारिश तो ये है कि आप ब्रेक ना लीजिए, जुम्मे का दिन है, या तो 1 o'clock
Oh,
तक
yes.
पॉइंट कर लें।
ठीक है, मैं आई एग्री, मेरा ख्याल है हम इसको कंटिन्यू करते हैं तकरीबन 45 minutes and then
yes please।
अच्छा देखें, the dumbest way to invest in crypto is that you just buy Bitcoin or Ether or any other cryptocurrency and then you wait. ठीक है, ज़्यादातर लोग यही करते हैं, wait once it will go up and then you will sell and make a little profit. But if it starts coming down, ठीक है, then you are confused then when to sell, because आपने तो खरीदी थी कि इधर जाएगी और इसने ऐसे जाना शुरू कर दिया, and you still expect, many people expect and they wait and wait and wait at least ये कि जब तक ये जितने की मैंने खरीदी है, if it does not go above that, I'm not going to sell. Or then there are other people who say, oh, they get in panic and they say, no, let me, because crypto, even Bitcoin has gone from, it touched $67,000 and went down, and even today, I think it is 48,000. Like losing $20,000. Okay, this is a humongous amount of loss. Like even if you have invested in Bitcoin and सारी जिंदगी की जमा पूंजी आपने कहा अच्छा I'm going to invest in Bitcoin, so it is, इसका जो swing है about 30% है, cryptocurrency swings at about 30%, ऐसे जाएगी ऐसे जाएगी ऐसे, so it's but on the other hand, like people thought about this, that because it's a currency, then they are trying to replicate the entire financial system. It's important. They're trying to replicate entire financial system on cryptocurrency, and they are making it distributed. Okay, so because there are a lot of securities, guarantees, the risks are pretty much covered in many investments you make. So it is always better that instead of just thinking of making a lot of money, you primarily make little but cover your risks. Okay, so the DeFi is the route where basically you can invest with where you are taking very little risk. Okay, DeFi is as its name says, it is decentralized finance, a financial service where there is no central authority. And we need to understand that, we understand banks को हमें सब समझ आ जाती है कि अच्छा I have a bank, I go and deposit money if I want to transfer it to somebody. So my bank will transfer it into another bank account which is owned by some other person. So this part of finance is simple, that there is a bank B1, then there is a bank B2, then there is a customer C1, and there is a customer C2. If you want to send some money to C2, you transfer it from your bank and he'll get an alert that there is a money being transferred from this person's account to this person's accounts, and bank will charge a little money, and depending upon which bank is this. If it is internal to the bank, they may not, but otherwise they charge you. So they rent you for every transaction. And this is how what we know. And we also know that if it is cryptos, and then you have a way to directly send that to C2 if you know its public address, and you have a digital wallet. So you have a crypto wallet, you have a crypto wallet, so which is a public, private and public key pair, and you want to send it, it has a public private key pair, and you have some cryptocurrency, then you can just sign it, commit it with your private key and send it. And this guy has a public address, and it will basically ensure, and everybody has a copy of the ledger and the transaction, and the miners would once put that transaction in a block, and only then you get this comfort, yes, this particular transaction which is being sent to me is part of the block, now I can spend it, right? So this we understand is very simple, but understanding DeFi is very, very complicated, very complicated, because there are CFOs, they understand finance better, chief financial officers, they are CAs, and they are, so even a simple accountant, they also don't understand the intricacies of finance. So finance is such a complicated subject. Finance is a very, very complicated subject. But because now there is a cryptocurrency, so people have tried, and they're still trying to replicate this whole financial system. Whatever is here, they are trying to replicate it into another financial system, which is a distributed financial system. So we really need to understand कि finance है क्या? What is finance? Okay. तो अगर वैसे ही मैं आपसे क्वेश्चन करूं किसी को, so can anybody define what is finance?
Sir, finance is just simply to fund.
Fund है, अच्छा. Anybody else?
Sir, it basically deals with the decision making, the high level decisions in the company for investment.
So it is
जी.
it is arrangement of capital to start some business.
Arrangement of capital to start some business. अच्छा, ठीक है. So we have like different views, and kind of like we have part of it is right कि ये कोई fund होता है या high level decisions हैं about the money, and the other one is कि it is something कि how you start your business. But then there's number of terminologies in central finance which we are calling CFI, right? So unless we don't understand this, it'll be hard for us to understand what decentralized finance is. और फिर then we will start appreciating कि अच्छा ये होता है, और concepts, और उसमें फिर क्या आपके products हैं. Okay? So finance जो है ना, I like this definition, and from this an Harvard professor who says finance जो है ना कि you get capital, the money from people who have it, and supply it to those who demand it or who need it. See, तो फाइनेंस की ब्रॉडर डेफिनेशन बहुत सादा सी है कि जिनके पास पैसा है उनसे लें, और जिनको चाहिए है उनको दें, ताकि जिसके पास पड़ा हुआ है उसको तो प्रॉफिट मिले उसको. So he basically is willing to give up his money, and these are usually household people, you and me, like people like us who work very hard, who do the savings, and then we want our savings to be invested somewhere. And if we are very cautious about the risk, तो हम simple बैंक में डाल देते हैं, लेकिन उस पर इंटरेस्ट आता है. There are many people who don't want to take interest, तो वो फिर चेकिंग अकाउंट में डाल देते हैं पैसे, और they don't realize कि वो किस तरह से डिप्लीट होता जाता है पैसा. दूसरे होते हैं, they take some courageous decision and they invest it into land, किसी ने खरीद ली, कोई शॉप खरीद ली, Then there are others वो कहते हैं उनका कोई रिश्तेदार है, वो कोई दुकान कर रहा है, वो कहता है जी if you let's contribute and we run a business. But it's the finance is about taking money from these people and giving it to these people who basically are running companies, shops, factories. तो ये तो सीधी सी बात लगती है, ठीक है. एंड समटाइम्स इट इज जस्ट लाइक दिस, इन स्पेशली इन फैमिलीज विद फ्रेंड्स, यू जस्ट इन्वेस्ट, ठीक है. आप कहते हैं अच्छा ये प्लॉट खरीद लेते हैं, 4 बंदे पैसे डालेंगे and we'll sell it after 1 year and we'll split it back into 4. So this is where you are just having this capital and you are investing, and one guy is taking the lead, वो जो property dealer से बात कर रहा है वो कर रहा है. So he is basically the guy who is kind of a CEO and he is making you invest in this project and then you distribute. So this is what the finance is. लेकिन होता ये है कि ये जो लोग हैं यहाँ पे, ठीक है, ये either they lie most of the time, like they want to show you a very rosy picture कि भाई इसमें इन्वेस्ट कर दें, you are going to make lot of this, going to big returns, you get 30% returns or 20% returns. So they lie to you, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, because they also believe that they are going to have that type of interest. Like a friend of mine came to me and said कि मूंगफलियों के अंदर ना इन्वेस्ट करें. So though he's an engineer and I told him you have never been to agriculture, that too in मूंगफली's business, and he was so convinced. He said, you know, there is 50% return on the investment, and he just was after me, and I kept telling him that you will just lose this money. But he was like, because he was my friend, knowing that he was zara dubohega, I still gave him some money which he never returned because he lost all of it. So it is sometimes they are genuinely lying to you, or sometimes they are also in this trap. They believe that this will make money, so they get into a business and then they find out that the business is not running. So comes in between so many people, the finance guys. Okay, so people take risk, जिसका मैंने कहा. Why? Because everybody knows, even डॉलर का ये हाल हो गया कि जो यहाँ पे $100 का था, अब उस वक्त उसकी वर्थ यहाँ पे $3 की हो गई है, यानी कि जो यहाँ पे $100 हैं उनकी वर्थ उस जमाने के $3 की वर्थ है. So whether you are converting your money into dollars and just storing it, it is just losing its value every day. और रुपी का तो बेचारे का हाल ही कुछ नहीं है. So keeping rupee in the bank is the worst thing you can do in your life, because it's just losing its value. It's losing its value every passing day. मुझे 1 मिनट दीजिएगा. अस्सलाम वालेकुम. हेलो हेलो. So, so even just keeping your money in rupees is even is the worst perhaps thing that you do, because it's just losing its value every passing day. So people would like to invest because of these reasons. And once you are investing, so comes the role of finance. The role of finance is that you are moving money from one place to another, and once you move there is a risk. Okay, you lose everything. Okay, so finance is about, this is an MIT professor who says finance is about allocating and moving money and risk together. So basically, once you move your money, you're also kind of creating a risk for your investment. So money going from one part of the hourglass to another, and here are the people through which you do that. First they charge you money, and then there is always a risk of you losing the money. So people based on usually is something like this. Okay, more the risk, more are the returns. So you got to select that whether you want to take no risk or little risk. There will be little return, and usually, and you need to decide. कि भाई आपने किधर, where do you want to be on this curve? What type of risk you intend to take? How much? And usually. Uh, so you will know, okay, if you're taking this bigger the risk, usually if it is intelligent financing. If it is just dumb financing, though your returns may be very little and you may be taking a big risk. So if it is very intelligent financing, so usually it is on this line that you take more risk so you can make more money. You take lesser risk, so less money. But it is risk and money. The finance is about risk and money. So investment is because you are investing in somebody else's enterprises, it is risky. As I mentioned earlier, कि जिसको पैसे चाहिए, he will lie to you. He'll say कि बड़ा जबरदस्त है. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, and you have no control over his business. Mostly, you are just dumb. You have given money, and now you are worried that what will happen to your money, and you want other people to worry about that, and they give you a level of confidence that this is the minimum you can make. और आहिस्ता आहिस्ता फिर लोग उसकी तरफ सूद की तरफ आ जाते हैं कि वो बैंक is saying कि भाई those are my problems, all the complexities are mine, I guarantee you that I'll give you this percentage, I may make 10 times more or I may make 10 times less. So वो सूदी होता है, which obviously is not halal in Islam. So you got to, Islam asks you to take some risk on your investment. ठीक है, तो वो कहते हैं भाई आप रिस्क लें आप, ताकि दैट इज व्हाट इज हलाल. You got to take risk and try to mitigate your risk. So for mitigating risk, at least I am taking this type of a risk. ठीक है, I am taking this type of a risk. I am not taking कि जी risk ही risk है और मेरा जो return है वो थोड़ा सा है. So all risk and my return is very little. So at least you know कि बंदा आपको बताएगा जी ये है आपका, देख लें. So this type of risk you are taking, and you say okay, I go for this, okay, and they'll charge you for their services. So why finance is so complicated? Just because of this reason, the finance has become very complicated. Okay, आप and ज़्यादातर लोगों को समझ भी नहीं आता. ठीक है, many of us, our household would not understand the complications in finance. So they basically हमारे यहाँ they either lose their, if they invest, many a times they lose, but sometimes they go for the easiest जो चीज़ें हैं finance में. और एक तो यही है कि जाके बस बैंक में पैसा रखवा दो. They will not understand like the different intricacies of finance. But finance is complicated. Okay. And this is just to fill the gap. ये हमें समझ आ गई. एक तरफ पैसा पड़ा हुआ है जो कि हम जैसे लोग हैं, मेहनत करते हैं, पैसा कमाते हैं, or they may be small businesses, they are making money, but end of the day it is the people who have this money, and then there are other peoples on this, they need money to expand, नई फैक्ट्रियाँ लगानी हैं, और जो एंटरप्राइजिंग लोग हैं, जो उन्होंने चाहे वो खेती बाड़ी कर रहे हैं, चाहे वो छोटे से परचून की दुकान खोल रहे हैं, but they are the people who are enterprising and they want money to be invested and so that there are returns. Up to basically bridge this trust gap, okay, or to give comfort to these people who don't understand finance. So there are people, and they are very expensive people. Okay, they're very expensive people, and we know okay, CAs or CFOs or how expensive they are. Okay, because they are directly playing with the money. Okay, so अब इन्होंने क्या, there are financial institutions, like there are pension funds. Pension funds आपको पता है कि गवर्नमेंट तो बेचारी खुद से कर रही होती है, but mostly private companies, they got to invest in a finance. The pension fund, with the consent of the employee has to put a percent, and then the company puts a percent, and they put it in a pension fund. Maybe EFU का pension fund है. So these are the companies which basically take your money and they go and invest. ठीक है, and it is, you don't care sometimes, and you don't know where they're investing. So they have these smart people who know where to invest. उस पे हम आएंगे कि what are the financial जो चीजें हैं जिनके अंदर the people could invest. ठीक है, so similarly are the mutual funds, and some of us must be knowing mutual funds क्या होते हैं. So they have portfolios. So they pull in money. So you say, the bank has, or one financial institution has a mutual fund, and they get money from so many different people, and they have a portfolio. They invest in the portfolio, and once they make money, they split the money into the people from where they have collected the money. So mutual funds में आप बिल्कुल you can participate as in mutual funds, and somebody would come and explain that what type of holders they have, उनका portfolio क्या है, in which companies they are investing. Usually they invest in 3 types of companies. One is very stable companies making little profit, and then is very aggressive companies which can just make a lot of money and also lose, and then so they spread out those spread out risk. So what they are spreading on money is spreading out risk. So money and risk go side by side. Okay, and these are the smarter people. They say, okay, अगर मैं यहाँ से lose भी करता हूँ, so I'm covering it here and here. So they take very, very calculated risk. Or if I make money, so I make a lot of money for my customer. So these are the mutual fund. The third type of people are hedge funds. Hedge funds are different. Like it's not open to everybody. इसके ऊपर ना वो भी नहीं होती कि SCCP की या SCP की जो regulations इनके पे लागू नहीं होती. They are rich people. The hedge funds are for the rich people. They cannot basically ask public to invest in the hedge funds, and maybe there is a bar that only people with they have $1 million in their account can be part of the hedge fund, because इनके ऊपर regulations या तो सख्त नहीं होती हैं, होती नहीं है. So they take big risks, and they have, like, because they're all rich people, and because they are rich people, they say invest, let's play with the money, and they perhaps may. So hedge funds have started coming into cryptocurrency as well. ठीक है, जैसे ही hedge fund आए क्रिप्टो में, तो क्रिप्टो की जो वैल्यू है वो ऊपर जाना शुरू होगी, because these are fearless people having humongous amount of money in their pockets, and they play with the money. किसी चीज को बढ़ाना है, गिराना है, right? So they do that. जैसा हम कहते हैं कि जी एक हमारे हैं जो कि जब दिल करता है प्रॉपर्टी को ऊपर ले जाते हैं, ठीक है, अपनी प्रॉपर्टी को जब दिल करता है उसको गिरा देते हैं, फिर खरीद के फिर ऊपर ले जाते हैं. So these are the people with deep pockets, and they can play with that. So why I'm telling you all this, because ये सारी चीजें can happen in the crypto, and they can also invest. All these people can also invest. A mutual fund may have a portfolio, may have hedge वाले तो बहुत सारे हैं, ठीक है, just investing in cryptocurrency. So the endowment funds, endowment का भी आपको पता है क्या होता है. Endowment ये होता है कि long term के लिए होता है, and you say कि I'm not going to touch it. Okay, this fund is there. So there's a permanence. You say, I will 10 years, I will not touch this fund. So the person who is investing knows that there's permanence, so he will invest in a long-term project. And dam ban raha hai, kahin kuch ho raha hai, says just put that money in there because iske returns, koi motorway bana raha hai, and then he'll collect the toll, and then he'll make the money, and then he'll give you the money. And you say, I don't care, long-term stable investment. So there are more returns because there are projects which are long-term projects, and there are surety in those projects that those projects are going to make more money, but they need that investment for a longer period of time for the project to be completed. तो इस तरह से ये वाले funds होते हैं. इसी तरह से अच्छा, then are the investment banks and brokers, and they are the people who basically are the traders and salespersons and bankers. And then the important are the analysts. ठीक है, analysts क्या कर रहे होते हैं? They are just reading all these companies. अगर there are many companies which are public limited companies. Okay, so they have their financial state every quarter. I'm also member board of directors of Shifa International Hospital, and for last I think 5-6 years. So I've seen, like, every quarter the CFO has to present the company financial health in front of the board. So there's a finance committee. First they go and do it in the finance committee, then bring it to the board of directors and just tell us that. So they have a financial statement that has to be gone to SECP, Security and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. And once they give that statement, with a statement which is signed by the board of directors about the quarter, that how the company did in that quarter. Then there are analysts who are just looking at numbers. Okay, how good the hospital is doing or how good a particular public limited company is doing. Right? And based on that, once they have a financial statement out, the company stock will go up and down. And as you know, okay, Apple ka stock hai, yeah. So they tell their earnings first of all. So if and they want to make sure that they don't reveal it to public, and they themselves don't buy and sell. So SECP put this restriction कि जो shareholders होते हैं, जो especially board members हैं, they are not to do the trading. This time तक they cannot do the trading because if company is doing good, they know कि इसने पहले से share खरीद लेने हैं सारे. So because knows कि people would invest because company is making money, they are announcing dividends. On the other hand, if company is doing bad, they'll try to just shed their shares. So the analysts are the key people. They have very deep insight into the company's financial health, and also they know whether there is a growth or it's just company is doing bad or it may go bankrupt. So analysts are feeding into these institutions as well. And also they are feeding into the media, and the media is playing also a role, telling people कि जी ये stock market crash कर गई है, यूं हो गया है, there is this thing has happened, this company, so this Bloomberg, and there are many other channels, they are just continuously talking about the markets, and especially the crypto currency and the crypto DeFi and all these things. अब देखिए यही चीज है, precisely these analysts, these people who are investing can invest in crypto as well, in cryptocurrency as well. So now people are developing platforms, and this is important. They are developing platforms that instead of just buying cryptocurrency, you invest in cryptocurrencies. And an investment that you can basically lend money to other. This is very interesting. That how do you lend a cryptocurrency? You have some Bitcoin. You say I don't want to sell it, but I can lend it to someone. Okay, he can make money and I can make money, but then he has to return it to me as is. So the entire lending process is I give it to you this money, and I want the profit in dollars, in dollars or in rupees, so that I spend, but I keep my asset as is. Okay. Or sometimes you have these dollars and you say, okay, I have these dollars, so I want to invest these, okay, and I want somebody to convert them into crypto. I'm not going to do that because I'm not good at spending, but I want this money back. Okay, I want, if I'm giving you $100, I want the $100 back. I want any other person who is smart to take this, and then you say, no, I am very smart. Okay, I'm very smart, and so this is the smart contract. So I say, okay, I want to invest $100. So I give this $100 to this framework, and so I am the lender and I'm the borrower as well, and I take this $100 back. I say, okay, I want to borrow this. Okay, so I basically lend and I then borrow, and then I say I have borrowed money, and there are conditions applied which we shall discuss. And I say, okay, now I will convert these into Ether or into Bitcoin, and I go and invest. Okay, so I go and I'm just playing with that. This is my personal investment which I have lended to the framework. I have borrowed this. I have got it converted into a cryptocurrency. I'm just playing with it very cautiously because the framework will not let me lose a lot of it. It will automatically liquidate. So it says, oh, it's going down and you have only this much margin to play, so it'll give me a margin to play, which is basically the bottom line. You say, oh, this is the bottom line. And there is a smart contract. So you don't, if even you are sleeping, there is a smart contract which is checking this. As soon as you hit this, it is going to liquidate your investment so that you only lose what you have allowed the framework to lose. So you are taking a little risk on your own investment, which you have borrowed and you have invested, and you are gaining money, or you lose a little and you get your money back. So just very interesting framework, and that's why I said that even if you want to invest in DeFi. So we understand all these people, and so there is a lot of noise here. Right? they call this is according to the Harvard professor view, and I think it's an Indian very smart guy, and he says that there is an asymmetric information what the company is telling you, and who are these people? Usually the CFO, and they may be an owner of the company. He does not know even the truth. They're very smart people. Like they are very smart people. Now you are an owner. आपने एक मिल लगाई हुई है. You are a textile. You have a textile industry, and you have and you have invested in 4 different industries. Absolutely no way for you to even understand what is happening in the finance, because there's this guy who is running your finance, and he'll give you one information, and obviously he has to push some information to the public, and he knows how to play with the numbers. And usually the financial crisis जो आते हैं वो पता लगता है कि ये लोग झूठ बोल रहे थे, इतना पीछे था नहीं. So these people are they know how to cook or how to play with the information and give you part of the information in a format that looks rosy or that does not look awkwardly bad. So उसके ख्याल में the problem is with the asymmetric information and the principal agent problem, or also the corporate governance problem, and the problem of the modern capitalism, or it is your problem that even you as an owner, if you have a big business, okay, it's a big business, you got to hire people, you got to hire CEO, you got to hire CFO. They are the people who are actually running your company, and they're just giving you information, and perhaps they may be hiding from you the truth, and which they may be knowing because of many reasons, and primarily their jobs. So symmetric information is a problem. Actually, to understand so now look, we are trying to understand finance. See, and why we are trying to understand finance? Because cryptocurrency is just moving towards that. People are now using this as an instrument, so financial instrument. So there are like 3 financial instruments, and we will cover that. And they're using it as a 4th financial instrument. But you need to understand that end of the day, it is getting into a company where you're going to invest in a company. And then perhaps, though difficult, but you may just want to understand that how do you gauge the health of a company? How do you know whether a company is doing good or bad? See, किस तरह से पता लगेगा? जो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट को पढ़ते हैं सर में दर्द हो जाता है. See, because the terms that you may not understand and they may be just meaningless for you कि यार इसका क्या मतलब है? See, so to understand that end of the day, you can directly go and invest, and that's what people do. They buy stocks. बहुत सारे लोग हैं हमारे बेचारे जो किसी से पूछ पाछ के स्टॉक्स के अंदर इन्वेस्ट कर रहे होते हैं. और then if they are smart people, they got to understand the financial statement of a company, and they say, yeah, ये company is going to do good, is persistently doing good, and what does that good mean? Okay. So let's talk about that. See, थोड़ा सा हम इसको करते हैं, then we'll do it tomorrow as well. कि अब देखिए होता ये है, any business you have, चाहे आप हथौड़ियाँ बना रहे हैं, चाहे आप you are a hospital or you are selling anything, आप एक फैक्ट्री हैं, आप जो कि कुछ प्रोडक्शन कर रही है, so any business you do, so these are the 4 components of that business. ठीक है, तो ये जिसमें आपने इन्वेंट्री को लेकर आना होता है. So you go and you buy, you get an inventory, and you have some time to pay for that inventory. Okay, sometimes you have to pay right there. So there are 0 days you got to buy the inventory. Okay, and you just keep it, and it's just lying there unless you sell it. So if you convert it into a product, and product is sold, and once the product is sold, and then there's payment terms that the guy who has bought it will pay you in these many days. Sometimes before manufacturing something, you say I am to be paid because I don't have any funds and money. किसी से फर्नीचर बनवाने जाएं, वो कहेगा जी सर, जी बताइए
क्या काफी,
सॉरी बताइएगा. बस हम इसको
सर मैं कह रहा हूं जुमे के लिए ब्रेक कर लें,
बस 5 मिनट्स में ब्रेक कर लेते हैं. ठीक है, 5 मिनट्स, फिर हम कल करेंगे बाकी. जस्ट गिव मी 5 more minutes. अभी 12:50 हुए हैं. जुमा आमतौर पे 1:30
सर 1 बजे पे सर क्लोज कर सकते हैं, 1 PM पे
1 PM पे खत्म कर लें, है ना?
जी
सो लेट मी जस्ट बस 1 बजे हम खत्म कर लेंगे भाई. अच्छा, ये मैं ना आपको सिर्फ ये स्लाइड कर देता हूँ, फिर इसका आगे हम बात करेंगे। देखें, कोई भी बिजनेस, जैसा मैंने कहा, चाहे whether you are manufacturing and you need to understand how good a company is doing, you need to understand these things so that you can invest. So उसके अंदर ये है कि उसने इन्वेंट्री ली है, लेट्स से कि कोई हथौड़ियाँ बेच रहा है, तो उसने कहा यार मुझे भेज दे दुकान पे इतनी, तो आई विल पे यू इन 50 days, ठीक है। सो दिस इज द पीरियड लाइक 50 days वेयर आई हैव समथिंग विच आई हैव नॉट पेड। ओके, अच्छा, अब उससे क्या हुआ कि मुझे जिस बंदे ने ख़रीदी मुझसे एनी प्रोडक्ट दैट आई गॉट फ्रॉम अ वेंडर, एंड आई से गिव मी सम डे, वंस आई सेल इट आई रिटर्न, एंड आई थिंक इन 50 days का मुझे आप मार्जिन दे दें। और मैं 50 days के बाद मुझे वो बिकी, एंड so 50 days I have kept it, sorry 50 days I've kept in the inventory, and then मैंने उसको बेचा, और बेच के मुझे 40 दिनों के बाद मुझे पेमेंट रिसीव, 40 days I received the payment, ठीक है। अच्छा, मुझे जो इस बंदे ने इन्वेंट्री दी, उसने मुझे कहा मैं आपको 30 days दूंगा, इन 30 days you have to pay me, ठीक है। सो ये है कि मुझे जो डेज आई हैव टू पे टू द वेंडर, ही हैज़ गिवन 30 days। इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि अब ये जो 20 days हैं, यहाँ पे तो मैंने पैसे उसको दे दिए, एंड आई एम नॉट मेकिंग एनी मनी ऑन दिस, सो आई स्पेंड, आई इन्वेस्टेड, ये सारा वो है वेयर आई गॉट टू समहाउ लिव, आई हैव टू एग्जिस्ट एज अ बिजनेस, बिकॉज यहाँ के 20 दिन बाद वो चीज़ बिकी, और 20 दिन के बिकने के बाद 40 दिन के बाद मुझे पेमेंट्स मिली, और यहाँ पे आई गेट यू नो। सो ऑल द बिजनेस व्हाट दे ट्राई टू डू इज कि इसको, ये जो दिन है फॉर यू टू पे, इसको बड़ा करने की कोशिश करते हैं कि यू हैव मोर टाइम, एंड सम वुड से जब बिक जाएगी तो हम आपको दे देंगे, इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन टाइप ऑफ द बिजनेस, कि जब बिक जाएगा तो हम आपको दे देंगे कि दुकान पे रख दें मेरी चीज़, एंड समटाइम यू हैव टू डू द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, से नहीं जी अभी पेमेंट करें, समटाइम यू से यार मुझे थोड़ा सा दिन दो इतने, सो आई डू द पेमेंट्स, एंड देन समटाइम्स अगेन द person who has come to purchase this, and you say नहीं यार पहले पैसे दो, ले जाओ चीज़, समटाइम्स यू नो देयर सिचुएशन है कि नहीं जी आप मुझे दे दें, मैं आपको इतने दिन के अंदर समझ दें, मैं आपको इतने दिन में, एंड स्पेशली बिजनेसेस वो चल रहे होते हैं हायरार्किकली के आपके रिटेलर है और फिर आगे है, फिर आगे है, तो इनका सारा क्रेडिट्स पे चल रहा होता है इसी तरह से। तो ये है कि हाउ प्राइमरीली यू मिनिमाइज दिस, और हाउ दीज थिंग्स आर रिफ्लेक्टेड ऑन टू वंस द कंपनीज आर बीइंग स्टडीड। तो ये हम इंशाल्लाह वंस वी कम नेक्स्ट टाइम, तो ये मैं एप्पल के बारे में आपको बताऊंगा कि यही जो 4 चीज़ें हैं एप्पल की, जो मैंने आपको दिखाई हैं, ये एप्पल ने, दिस लाइक अमेजिंग बिजनेसमैन, ये उनकी इन्वेंट्री है, ठीक है, दैट हैज दे हैव ब्रॉट इट डाउन टू 3 days, ये सिर्फ 3 दिन की इन्वेंट्री रखते हैं, बाकी वो किसी और ने रखी हुई है उनके लिए, ठीक है। एंड दिस अमेजिंगली चलें इंशाल्लाह वंस वी कम बैक वी डिस्कस दिस। नहीं अभी तो है, थोड़ा सा टाइम देख लेते हैं। सो अच्छा देखें, सो द रेड इज सो द ग्रीन वन इज कि इनकी इन्वेंट्री जो है इन्होंने कर दी है सिर्फ 3 दिन के ऊपर। ओके, सो देयर आर वेंडर्स एंड दे सेड यू हैव टू कीप द इन्वेंट्री वंस आई प्लेस एन ऑर्डर, ठीक है, आई वांट इट जस्ट देयर। अच्छा, अब उनका जो पेमेंट है ना, पेमेंट को उन्होंने डिक्रीज कर दिया है तकरीबन this is where the red is every day sales out or inventory out every days. This is where they pay to their vendor, ठीक है। पहले 50 days था, अब दे से कि जी हम आपको 100 days के बाद देंगे पैसे, ठीक है। सो दे आर गेटिंग समथिंग एंड दे आर सेइंग कि जी अभी दो पैसे, तुम्हें 100 दिन के बाद मिलेंगे, ओके। और जिसको बेच रहे हैं उसको कम कर दिया, उसने कहा जी मुझे तो बस इतने दिन के अंदर अंदर पैसे चाहिए, ठीक है। सो व्हाट दे हैव डन इज, इफ यू लुक एट दिस, इन्होंने जब ये इन्वेंट्री इसको कर दिया, जिसको पैसे देने हैं उसको बहुत लंबा टाइम लगा दिया, ठीक है। सो गिव यू मनी यू नो आफ्टर 100 days, जिससे पैसे लेने हैं उसका बहुत थोड़ा टाइम कर दिया है कि जी मुझे आप फौरन पैसे दें, ठीक है। सो व्हाट हैज़ हेल्प देम, और इसको जो वेंडर को पैसे देने हैं इसको उन्होंने बहुत लंबा कर दिया है, और इतना कि नेगेटिव हो गया इनका कि नाउ दे डोंट हैव टू वेट फॉर सो इनका जो नेट कैश साइकिल है ये नेगेटिव में गया हुआ है, ठीक है। सो मीन्स दैट दे आर नॉट ऑपरेशनल, अपना टू रन द ऑपरेशन दे आर नॉट पुटिंग इन देयर ओन मनी, it is all the money from the people who are providing them with the supplies and the money of the people who are buying it। तो ये हुआ कि मैंने एक चीज़ खरीदी, उसको मैंने पैसे नहीं दिए, मैंने कहा ये 100 रुपये की है तुम्हें पैसे नहीं मिलेंगे, उसको मैंने 150 रुपये का बेच दिया, उसको कहा फ़ौरन पैसे दो मुझे, ठीक है, और इसको अगर 100 रुपये तुम्हें 100 दिन बाद मिलेंगे। तो मेरे पास नाउ आई हैव दिस मनी टू प्ले विद विच दो आई ऑलरेडी हैव गॉटन इट एंड बैक टू बैक पेमेंट नहीं किया, मैं आपको 100 दिन बाद दूंगा। सो आई हैव दिस मनी टू रन माय ऑपरेशंस एंड एवरीथिंग फ्रॉम माय पॉकेट, आई एम नॉट इन्वेस्टिंग अ पैनी। सो ये आपका नेगेटिव के अंदर नेट कैश फ्लो इज इन द नेगेटिव। नेक्स्ट जो एवरेज कैश कन्वर्जन साइकिल है वो एप्पल का नेगेटिव में चल रहा होता है, दे आर नॉट putting any of their money in the business. So that is an amazing way to run a business and for a company like Apple. तो ठीक है जी, हम इंशाल्लाह फिर कल को 12 बजे we'll continue from here, ठीक है। क्वेश्चन हो किसी का तो आप पूछ सकते हैं, but then we meet tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you जी, अस्सलाम।